Hello everyone, today I will continue telling you the story of the single mother, Dieu Han. I hope you enjoy watching the video. Tana's company entered a phase of stronger growth than ever before. From the early days when he was just an engineer tirelessly working over blueprints, construction sites, and late-night shifts, he had now become a young CEO well known within the industry. Tana's name gradually began to appear in partner meetings, on major contracts, and in warm introductions from friends and colleagues. As time went on, more and more collaborative projects came looking for his company. Some partners reached out proactively, while others were job offers from large corporations he once only dared to dream about. Each time he looked at newly signed plans and the steadily rising figures month by month, he felt a very real sense of joy, not pride or self-satisfaction, but the quiet relief of someone who had endured enough hardship to finally touch the rewards. Tan was happy because he had made it. Happy because the years of struggle, the sleepless nights in a foreign land, and the moments of exhaustion when he almost wanted to give up had not been in vain. But more than anything, what made him happiest was knowing that from now on, he could give Dieu Han a more comfortable life, easing the silent burdens she had carried on her shoulders for so many years. Tan laughed and shook his head. This one's spicy. This one's very spicy. And this one, moderately spicy. Han's eyes widened. So, they're all spicy? In the end, Tan ordered a few dishes he knew were milder, along with a bowl of hot soup. When the food arrived, Han looked at the bright red kimchi and swallowed nervously. She tried a small bite, then immediately fanned her mouth. It really is spicy. Tan quickly pushed a glass of water toward her. I told you. Han drank the water and laughed shyly. But, it's good. She still tried to eat a few more bites, even as her face turned red from the heat. Tan laughed at the sight, not teasing her, just quietly picking out easier dishes for her. The meal passed with gentle, everyday laughter, no need for many words, just sitting across from each other in a foreign country, and that was warmth enough. Han looked around the restaurant, then turned to Tan, her gaze softening. She suddenly realized that even in distant Seoul, being with him still felt as familiar as the simple meals they shared at home. And for the first time on this trip, Han felt her heart truly relax. No longer so anxious, no longer as afraid as she had been at the start. What remained was a very real sense of peace, that no matter where she went, as long as there was someone sitting across from her like this, any place could become a place of comfort. Tan took out his phone and snapped a few photos of Han. She didn't pose, she simply sat there, gazing out at the street, her lips curved into a very natural smile, one she herself rarely noticed. You look beautiful when you smile, Tan said. Han felt a little shy and lowered her gaze to take a sip of coffee, though the happiness still lingered at the corners of her lips. She realized it had been a long time since she'd been able to sit like this, without thinking about work, without worrying about tomorrow. At noon, Tan took Han for a walk in a nearby park. Rows of trees stretched on, their leaves gently swaying in the breeze. If it was spring, pale pink cherry blossoms drifted lightly onto the paths. If it was autumn, golden leaves covered the ground, creating a scene so gentle it tugged at the heart. Han slowed her steps, her eyes lighting up like a child's. She stopped to take photos, bent down to pick up a leaf, then looked around with genuine delight. At times, she laughed simply because a flock of birds swooped down onto the grass, or because an elderly couple passed by holding hands. Tan walked a few steps behind her, never urging her on. Watching Han, his heart warmed. He realized that here, in this unfamiliar place, free from her usual pressures, Han was truly living for herself, not for anyone else, not out of responsibility, but simply to enjoy the moment. Han turned back and met Tana's gaze. She smiled, light and easy. It feels so easy to breathe here. Tan nodded. Then let's slow down. There's no need to rush. In that quiet park, Han suddenly understood something very simple. Happiness, it turned out, wasn't always about big things. Sometimes, it was just walking unhurriedly beneath the trees, in a foreign place, and feeling freer than ever before. Tan had cherished this idea for a long time. For their anniversary, he didn't want it to be just a simple meal or a familiar gift, but something truly special, a trip abroad, to places dieu had once mentioned casually in passing conversations, places she had only dared to admire through her phone screen with a wistful smile. He wanted Han to go to the places she loved, to see with her own eyes the beautiful scenery she had once thought she would visit someday, when things are better. He wanted her to experience the best things, not out of luxury, but because she deserved it after so many years of living frugally and putting others before herself. Quietly, Tana began to plan. From choosing the destination, booking flights and hotels, to arranging an itinerary that wouldn't tire Han or make her worry too much, everything was prepared carefully and discreetly, just like the way he loved, not loudly, but with certainty. When everything was ready, that evening Tana went to Han's house for dinner. The meal was warm and familiar, just like any other time. Han was still busy tidying up, serving him food, asking about his work. Tana was quieter than usual, his heart filled with both nervousness and anticipation for her reaction. In the days that followed, dieu began to step into a phase of life she had never imagined she would experience. Just the thought of applying for a passport was enough to make her anxious for an entire week. Every night, she asked Tana countless questions: what documents to bring, whether she needed to take photos, whether she would have to talk a lot to people there. Tana listened with a smile, patiently explaining everything bit by bit, as if it were all very simple. On the day they went to apply for the passport, Han dressed more neatly than usual. On the way there, she clutched her handbag tightly, her eyes revealing obvious nervousness. Tana walked beside her, occasionally reminding her, "Just stay calm. I'm here with you." Once they arrived, Han fumbled through every step, from taking a queue number, filling out forms, to having her photo taken. At times, she turned to look at Tana as if asking for help. He simply nodded gently, signaling, "It's okay." When everything was finally done, Han let out a long sigh of relief, exhausted yet happy, feeling as though she had just overcome something truly big. A few days later, Han went to buy a suitcase. She stood in front of the shelves for a long time, comparing prices and weighing her options, and eventually chose the cheapest one. When Tana saw it, he frowned slightly. "This one's too thin. It'll get damaged easily on a long trip." Han waved her hand quickly. "It's only a few days. This is fine." Tana didn't say anything more, just nodded. But when they got home, Han was surprised to see another suitcase neatly placed in the room, sturdier, with smooth wheels, and exactly in the color she liked. Tana pretended to be casual. "I exchanged it for you. If you're traveling far, you should use something better." On their first morning in Seoul, dieu woke as soft sunlight filtered through the gap in the curtains. It wasn't the harsh, familiar sunlight of home, but a gentle, clear, and cool glow. She lay still for a few seconds, listening to the faint sounds outside, the steady hum of cars, distant voices. Everything felt quieter than she had expected. Han slowly got out of bed and pulled the curtains open. The whole city appeared before her. Below, the streets were beginning to come alive, pedestrians, buses, small shops opening to welcome the morning. Everything moved in an orderly, unhurried way, as if everyone knew exactly where they were going. Leaning against the window, Han suddenly felt lighter. The fear and sense of disorientation she had felt upon arriving were gone. In their place was a strange new feeling. She found herself looking forward to the day ahead, eager to step outside, to see more, to experience just a little more. Behind her, Tana had also just woken up. He watched Han standing by the window, the morning light softly resting on her face. The moment made him instinctively slow down, as if afraid of disturbing the calm surrounding her. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. Han turned back and smiled. "Very well. I feel more at ease than I expected." Later, the two of them stopped by a small cafe near the hotel. It wasn't large, but it was tastefully decorated. Sunlight streamed through the glass windows, casting soft patterns of light across the wooden floor. The music played quietly, just enough to make the space feel warm. Han chose a seat by the window. She held a cup of hot coffee in her hands, the warmth slowly spreading to her fingertips. Outside, people passed by without hurry, everything seemed to move more slowly than she had imagined. After the meal, just as Han poured more tea, Tan slowly spoke. "There's something I want to tell you." Han looked up, slightly surprised. Tan took out his phone, opened the information he had saved, and placed it in front of her. "For our anniversary, I want to take you on a trip abroad." Han froze. She looked at the screen, then at Tan, her eyes wide with surprise. "Are you serious?" How could I even go?" Before the joy could fully settle, confusion and worry rushed in. Han shook her head gently. "I don't know the language, and the procedures, the airplane. I'm afraid I won't be able to do it." Tan smiled, his voice softer and gentler than ever. He took Han's hand and squeezed it lightly. "You just need to follow me. I've taken care of everything. Tickets, hotel, paperwork, itinerary, as long as I'm with you, you don't have to worry about anything." Han looked at him for a long time. In her eyes were hesitation, the fear of stepping out of her comfort zone for the first time, but also a growing sense of trust. Finally, she nodded slightly, her lips curving into a smile, her eyes glistening with happiness. "Then I'll go." Tan let out a quiet sigh of relief, a smile spreading across his face. He knew this trip was not just a journey to a faraway place, but a milestone of a new chapter, one where dieu Han no longer stood behind her worries, but walked beside him, with trust and love. Han looked at the suitcase, then at him, feeling both shy and strangely warm inside. In the evenings, Han began practicing a few simple English phrases. She spoke slowly, her pronunciation still awkward. "Thank you very much." Tan laughed, but it was a gentle laugh. He sat closer to her, correcting each word, pronouncing them slowly for her to repeat. Some sentences she kept getting wrong, and her face turned red as she was about to give up. Tan lightly patted her hand. "It's okay. You're already doing great." There were nights when Tan had already fallen asleep, but Han was still awake. Lying on her side, she watched videos on her phone about the country they were about to visit, unfamiliar streets, distant beautiful landscapes. She felt both excited and anxious. She worried about being clumsy, about not fitting in, about seeming out of place in a foreign land. Tan woke up, noticed the glow of the screen, and asked softly, "Why aren't you sleeping yet?" Han turned toward him and whispered, "I'm a little worried. I don't know if I can really do this." Tan pulled her closer, his voice low and steady. "I'm here. You just need to enjoy it." Han nodded lightly, turned off her phone, and rested her cheek against his shoulder. In that moment, she realized this trip was not just a vacation, but the first time in her life she was stepping out of her familiar worries, with someone quietly holding her hand tightly. That morning, Tan came to pick Han up earlier than usual. She pulled along her brand new suitcase, her hands trembling slightly despite her effort to appear calm. In the car, Han spoke less than usual. She gazed out the window, her heart filled with both excitement and unease, the feeling of stepping into a completely different world. Just 4 words, but they were enough for Han to take a deep breath and regain her composure. He guided her step by step, through check-in, luggage drop-off, and security. At times, Han froze in confusion when she didn't understand what the staff were saying. Tan would immediately step in, explain with a smile on her behalf. Han only needed to stand beside him and follow his lead, her heart gradually calming. Once they sat waiting at the boarding area, Han finally had time to look around more carefully. Through the large glass windows, a white airplane lay still on the runway, huge and unfamiliar. Moments later, the engine started, a deep roar filled the air, and the plane slowly began to move. Han watched without blinking. Her heart beat faster. In that moment, she felt both nervous and emotional. She had never imagined she would one day stand here, in a large airport, preparing to leave the country she knew so well to travel somewhere so far away. She spoke softly, her voice small but full of feeling. "I never thought I'd be able to come this far. Tan looked at her, his gaze softening. Then today, we go, so you can see that you can do it. Han turned to look at him. In the overwhelming vastness of the space around them, Tana's presence suddenly felt incredibly solid and reassuring. She nodded gently, her hand still resting securely in his, a very real sense of safety spreading through her. When the announcement for their flight boarding came on, Han stood up and took a deep breath. She was still worried, still afraid, but she no longer wanted to step back. Because this time, she wasn't going alone. And as she took her first steps toward the boarding gate, Han knew, this was not just her first trip abroad, but the first time in her life she truly dared to believe that she could go farther, as long as someone was holding her hand tightly. He began paying attention to even the smallest details of Han's daily life. From a new washing machine so she would no longer have to wash clothes by hand every night, to better pots and pans to make cooking less tiring, to a brand new refrigerator to replace the old one that had been struggling for a long time. Tan bought her essential items, new things she had always hesitated to purchase, afraid they would be too expensive. Once, looking around at the house as it slowly became more complete, Han asked softly. "You bought so many things, isn't it too costly?" Tan just smiled, his voice calm and steady. "I can afford it now. These things are to make life easier for you, not to show off." Those items were not just material possessions, they were Tana's quiet way of making up for the past, for the woman who had stood by him when he had nothing in his hands. He didn't talk much about his success, nor did he show it off. Instead, he silently used small, everyday changes to tell Han that from now on, she didn't have to carry everything on her own anymore. And on peaceful evenings, when Han sat down to rest after a long day, looking at the warmly lit house, Tan suddenly realized that his greatest success was not the title of CEO or valuable contracts, but the sense of peace that came from knowing the woman he loved was living a lighter, gentler life with each passing day. Han gently pulled the curtain aside and stood close to the window. The city stretched out before her, wide and distant, completely different from anything she had ever known. In that moment, she felt it very clearly, she was truly far from home, not just in distance, but in having stepped outside the life she had lived for so many years. She stood there for a long time without speaking. Tan set down the suitcase and looked at her from behind. He didn't hurry over, quietly giving her the space to feel that first moment in her own way. Han spoke first, her voice small and slow, as if talking to herself. "If you weren't here, I don't think I'd dare to go anywhere." Tan walked over and stood beside her. He didn't answer right away, only reached out to take her hand and squeezed it gently. The city lights reflected on her face, making her eyes shimmer more than usual. "Then we'll take it slowly," he said softly. "We'll go together." Han nodded lightly. A strange feeling rose in her chest, gratitude, reassurance, and a sense of being protected in a foreign place. After resting for a while, Tan suggested going out for dinner. The Korean restaurant wasn't far from the hotel, cozy with warm yellow lights and the aroma of food drifting from the kitchen. Han stepped inside and looked at the menu filled with Korean characters, unable to hide her confusion. "Is this very spicy?" she asked hesitantly, pointing to one dish. When the car stopped in front of the airport, Han almost froze. A vast space opened before her eyes, streams of people moving hurriedly, announcements echoing constantly, signboards filled with foreign words she couldn't fully understand. Everything felt too big, too fast, too unfamiliar. Instinctively, Han tightened her grip on Tana's hand. He noticed immediately. He pulled her suitcase along and stood slightly in front of her, as if shielding her, his voice calm and steady. "Just follow me. Don't worry." Inside, Han felt even more overwhelmed. People moved everywhere, each seemingly busy with their own journey. She was afraid of getting lost, afraid of making a wrong turn, afraid that if she let go of his hand, she would disappear into the crowd. Her grip on Tana's hand tightened without her even realizing it. Tan leaned down slightly and whispered, "I'm here." As the plane began its descent, a completely unfamiliar land appeared outside the window before Han's eyes. Rows of neatly aligned buildings, wide and clean roads, muted colors, everything felt so different from the familiarity of home. Her heart beat faster when the wheels touched the ground, a very gentle moment, yet enough for her to know that she had truly arrived in South Korea. When she stepped off the plane, a cool breeze rushed toward her. Han shivered slightly, feeling both strange and delighted. The air here was cooler, clearer, carrying a scent that felt entirely different. Around her, Korean announcements echoed continuously over the loudspeakers, their quick, decisive rhythm making her feel confused. She heard the words without understanding them, only managing to look around, suddenly feeling small in a vast, unfamiliar place. Instinctively, Han slowed her steps. Ta noticed immediately. He pulled her suitcase for her, matched his pace to hers, and kept her close by his side. "Just follow me," he said softly, his voice calm and steady. In the immigration area, Han felt even more flustered. Signs were filled with Korean mixed with English, staff spoke quickly and efficiently. At times, she stopped short, unsure which way to go. Tan stepped forward right away, spoke with the staff, handed over the documents, and smiled naturally, as if he had long been familiar with this rhythm of life. Han only needed to stand beside him and watch. Gradually, her heart settled. When they collected their luggage and stepped out into the main hall, Han couldn't hide her amazement. Everything was neat and orderly. People walked fast but without chaos, everyone seemed busy yet calm. Advertising boards, gleaming glass walls, Korean characters hanging everywhere, all of it felt foreign and yet captivating. Han spoke softly, her voice low. "It's so different here." Tan smiled. "Yeah. But you'll get used to it." On the way to the hotel, Han sat close to the car window, watching intently. The streets of Seoul passed by before her eyes, rows of straight trees, cozy little cafes, young people dressed neatly, walking briskly. She observed it all while unconsciously comparing it to her own everyday life, simple, familiar, and very far from this place. At one point, a thought crossed her mind: if I were here alone, I'd be so scared. She turned to look at Tan. He was checking their itinerary on his phone, his expression calm, as if everything were already under control. That sense of reassurance naturally spread to her. She suddenly realized that traveling far away wasn't necessarily frightening. What was truly scary was having to face everything alone. And now, in a foreign country with a foreign language, she still felt she had someone to rely on, someone to guide her. Han smiled softly, feeling much lighter inside. It turned out that this vast world wasn't so terrifying, when beside her was someone willing to slow down, just so she could adapt little by little. On their first evening in Seoul, when the hotel room door closed behind them, Han stood still for a few seconds. In front of her was a large glass window, opening onto a city glowing with lights. Seoul at night appeared both bustling and peaceful, long roads shimmering with warm yellow light, cars flowing endlessly yet without noise, everything orderly in a way that felt almost unreal.
Hello mọi người, chào mừng mọi người đã quay trở lại với video của mình và chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ, hạnh phúc, một ngày làm việc tràn đầy năng lượng. Hy vọng là những video của mình sẽ mang đến niềm vui cho mọi người và giúp mọi người thư giãn sau những chuỗi làm việc mệt mỏi. Câu chuyện hôm nay mình chia sẻ về Diệu Hân. Sau những cố gắng thì Thành và Diệu Hân cùng nhau đi du lịch và trải nghiệm một cuộc sống đầy thú vị, nơi mà Diệu Hân chưa từng đến, và hạnh phúc bên nhau trải qua những ngày du lịch ấm êm và lãng mạn. Liệu rằng tiếp theo câu chuyện sẽ có những chuyển biến nào thì mọi người cùng đón xem những video tiếp theo của mình nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe một phút chia sẻ của mình. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở những video tiếp theo nhé.